Okay, it's going to be a review of No Way Out 2006. This is a SmackDown brand-only pay-per-view. Definitely in contention for one of the best, if not the best, SmackDown brand-only pay-per-view. So we're going all the way back to February 19th, 2006 from Baltimore, Maryland, the First Mariner Arena. 11,000 in attendance. Not exactly a WrestleMania-type crowd. As Angle still kind of wishes him and Undertaker got a chance to wrestle at WrestleMania. The pay-per-view buy rate pretty disappointing, I would say, 218,000. I've always noticed the SmackDown ones were a lot lower than Raw, but I think 218,000. That sounds kind of low, especially when you consider how good this card was. I think it's an awesome card. I think everything was good on it. I didn't really care for the opener, but let's get right down to it. We have a Cruiserweight Open for the Cruiserweight Championship. So we got Gregory Helms, who used to be known as Hurricane Helms, defending the Cruiserweight title against a shitload of Cruiserweights, including Brian Kendrick, Funaki, Kid Kash, Nunzio, Paul London, Psychosis, Scotty Hotty, and Super Crazy of the Mexicools. I just think too many Cruiserweights in this match. It's almost like we just... let's just stack up all these cruiserweights and just call it a cruiserweight, open cruiserweight division. I just think in a situation like this, you got to either narrow it down. And, I just felt bad for a lot of these guys. I mean, it was a good match. I thought it got off to a slow start because it's just tough to make it work when you got all those guys in the ring just kind of thrown in there like they're a bunch of ants. And, I got to say, good action towards the end. It was like the last couple of minutes, you got some really, really good stuff. The moonsault from Super Crazy, featured, Gregory Helms take advantage of it, and he kind of steals the victory after the Super Crazy moonsault. But I think everybody looked good. Everybody got their stuff in. Kid Kash was actually really good here. He kind of ruined the ending, though. So Gregory Helms kind of, he's running away from everybody. Everyone's kind of chasing him out of the arena. And then Kid Kash kind of stops running, like right when you get to the backstage area. But it wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, I got to say, pretty solid cruiserweight division. I just wish we had gotten a little bit more creativity here. The general thought is that Vince wasn't a huge fan of the division as a whole. All right, next up, you actually had Crystal, Bobby Lashley's wife. You almost forget how hot she was. I mean, she was stacked, really, really hot body. So you could definitely see why Lashley was so loyal to her. I think they actually did get married. Was it Crystal Marshall, if I'm not mistaken? So she's interviewing Finlay, and then Finlay just picks her up and takes her to the ring. So JBL gets the upper hand here. Finlay's pretty much preoccupied with... Lashley's pretty much distracted by Finlay. So when JBL comes out, he actually has the advantage. So Bradshaw comes out with Jillian Hall at this time. Remember, Jillian Hall was like a business advisor. But I got to say, with this match right here, very physical, very rough. Lashley was able to, suplex Bradshaw, who's carrying a lot of body fat here. But, Lashley worked really hard. Some of the T-bone suplexes were impressive. Bradshaw gets busted open from the nose the hard way. He had a lot of just real blood just all over his face here. And I got to say, I thought Lashley was good at this time. I really thought he was impressive. He was a hell of a specimen. Some of the belly-to-bellies on the outside were really impressive. So yeah, just a solid physical match. Finlay was just really creative, at how he was able to distract the referee. So he was feuding with Lashley this whole year. So he actually takes the ring announcer, Tony Chimmel, just throws him in the ring just to distract the referee. And then he hits Bobby Lashley, Bobby who? With the, the shillelagh? And then Bradshaw gets the clothesline from hell for the victory. But I got to say, man, I think JBL and Lashley had a good match here. Some of the transitions from the clothesline from hell into the, with the Dominator, the Devastator, some of the suplexes Lashley hit. I gotta say, I was impressed with this match. Not as boring as you would have think. I mean, at this time, I think JBL had a reputation for just being out of shape and boring, but he got really good heat here as well. So we'll move on to the tag team match, non-title match. I thought this was something that you could have had on SmackDown. So you got a non-title match with Eminem and Melina, Joey Mercury and Johnny Nitro, taking on Matt Hardy and a mystery opponent. Mystery opponent ended up being Tatanka. Tatanka was a surprise appearance at the Royal Rumble. I got to say, not a bad match. I just thought you could have done this on SmackDown, and it kind of made me think, man, Matt Hardy going to SmackDown. Was it really that necessary? I think you should have kept Matt Hardy on Raw. Like, were him and Edge did they hate each other so much that it was impossible for them to work together? And I know you had Lita on Raw as well, so maybe that would have made for a very hostile environment, but I don't know. I just feel like Matt Hardy, they just treated him like such a mid-carder on SmackDown. I think the only good thing that really came of it was a feud with MVP. But you even look towards like October, like when Booker T and Bobby Lashley were in the title picture, you could have easily had Matt Hardy in that title picture, but he just never really got out of the mid-card here. But yeah, him and Tatanka were cool. I think at this time, I think Tatanka underrated, man. He was pretty thick. He had a really big upper body. He carrying a lot of muscle. But he was good. He knew how to chop. His clotheslines had really nice execution, and I thought this was a cool match. Melina was screaming like a biatch here. She was slapping the shit out of Matt Hardy. But hey, I thought it was fun. It could have been on SmackDown, but it wasn't like it took away from the show or anything. It was a solid tag team match, and Matt Hardy and Tatanka get the feel-good victory. It's a non-title match, so you can get away with it there. All right, next up we got Booker T defending the United States Championship against Chris Benoit. So Sharmell and Booker T are a couple at this time. So this was before the King Booker stuff, and I really thought Booker T was great as a heel here. I thought he had great chemistry with Teddy Long. It almost felt like, because they're both brothers, Booker T, thought he could get one over on Teddy, but Teddy was just, never having it. He wanted to have Booker T, defend his title, even if he was injured. So, I just thought the chemistry between Booker T and Teddy Long was great here. So, they had the best of 7 series, which I believe Booker T won, and he got hurt during the series, and I think he actually had to have Randy Orton substitute for him. And in this match right here, he was trying to get out of it. I think he had a groin injury. He was trying to forfeit. So Benoit didn't want to win by forfeit. He said there's no way in hell he's going to accept the United States Championship by forfeit. And as Booker T is leaving the ring, Benoit starts calling him a coward. And he actually gets the whole arena to chant coward. It sounds a little bit childish. But, there's worse names you could have called him. You could have called him an asshole. You could have called him, God knows what. But yeah, I think only a guy like Benoit could have got away with that. And then while that's going on, Sharmell starts slapping the crap out of Benoit. She's like, "This is all your fault, Benoit." And Benoit, I don't know if this has really aged that well, but, Benoit looks like he's in a rage while Sharmell is slapping him. And then Booker T attacks Benoit from behind, and then we finally get the match. And I thought it was a good match, man. I think Benoit and Booker T, even at this time, have really good chemistry. Just some of the lockups and the test of strength was really good here. But yeah, man, solid match. I would definitely say this is in contention for, possibly the best match I think they had in WWE. I think their WCW work was a little bit more athletic than this. But I got to say, man, Benoit in 2006, he was still in good shape at this time. I think this was, the early 2006 stuff from Benoit was great. I think where he ran into trouble was during the sabbatical, during the summertime. I just think he went through a lot of changes at that time with maybe drinking and, some of the stuff with religion. So if anyone out there gets a chance to interview Daniel Benoit, that will be a really interesting question for him. Like, did you notice any changes, when your father took that sabbatical in the summer of 2006? But I think at this time he had a pretty good support system. You had Chavo, Vicky, and you just had still a pretty stacked roster. I think Angle too, being a part of SmackDown, you just had a really good support system. Still on SmackDown. I think they were all grieving at the same time. Rey Mysterio as well. But yeah, I thought Benoit looked good here. Booker T actually busted at the Houston Hangover, which he rarely busted at. Hogan actually had to get surgery because of the leg drop. Constantly doing it. So could you imagine, the toll that the Houston Hangover would take? So, but yeah, good stuff. I just thought this was definitely an awesome match. This is probably my second favorite match of the night. But the stuff with Sharmell was really, really good too. Like the ending here, she was actually up on the ring apron trying to distract the referee, and it's unique the way they did it. Benoit was trying to lock Booker T into the sharpshooter, and then Booker T just kicks Benoit into the ropes, and it's almost like Benoit, almost on purpose, but it looked accidental, knocked Sharmell off without even like hitting her. So it was a non-contact thing. That would not have aged well at all if Benoit were to, hit a woman, hit Sharmell. So, yeah, the way they did it was pretty creative. And I thought the ending here was beautiful. He locked in the sharpshooter. Booker T gets to the middle of the ring, and then Benoit just transitions into the crossface. While Booker T's legs are dead, he can't get to the ropes, and taps out right away. So an awesome match right here. I thought this was, really, really good stuff. But Booker T looked like he might have been injured, but it didn't take away from the match too much. I still thought him and Benoit definitely brought it. Great stuff right there. So Benoit wins the United States Championship back. This is the first time he won it. Yeah, this might have been the first time he won it. He might have won it earlier, maybe in late 2005. But he never won it in WCW, so it's a great victory for him. Looking back on it, though, I think, this is a match you could have had at WrestleMania. I think, you dragged it out this long. Why have the blow-off here? When you look at what both guys did at WrestleMania, very disappointing. I mean, they handled this very poorly. The six guys in this triple main event right here. I mean, it could have been so much better. I mean, what we got was cool. But, just to think, you could have easily done Benoit versus Booker T at WrestleMania instead of doing Booker T versus Boogeyman or Benoit versus JBL. I think both of them were pretty much forgettable looking back on it. All right, next up, you got Randy Orton taking on Rey Mysterio. Orton challenges Mysterio for the #1 contendership for WrestleMania 22. This is probably one of the most controversial angles of all time. They actually talked about this in the Vince McMahon 9 Lives documentary. That was in poor taste, and this was definitely triggered by Vince. That this was all Vince's doing, and even watching the commentary in this match or listening to the commentary, you could definitely tell Vince is in Taz's ear, Michael Cole's ear, just put over Randy Orton like he's a prick, that he's the scum of the earth, that he's evil, that he's cocky, no good son of a bitch. You could just tell, like, they really tried to nail home that Randy Orton is just a no good piece of shit in this match. So basically, I think, Vince wanted to use Eddie's death just to try to, get Randy Orton some heat here. So I want to read back the quote to you. This is a sign of a good heel too. So I don't know if Orton and Eddie Guerrero ever touched or ever, I don't think they ever wrestled. I don't know if they got along in real life, but Orton was just very scarily convincing with this line right here. So this is the promo to Mysterio, and he's talking about divine intervention, that, Mysterio didn't really win, and there's no chance of hell you have of winning at WrestleMania. You're no Eddie Guerrero. See, it's funny because, Orton puts down Eddie, but at the same time, he almost praises him too by saying that Mysterio is no Eddie Guerrero. Like, he's never going to win the championship. He's never going to main event WrestleMania like Eddie did. So he says, Ray, you're looking up towards the heavens like you're looking at Eddie. Let me tell you something, bro. Eddie ain't in heaven. Eddie's down there in hell. So, controversial angle. It was definitely in poor taste, most people would say. I mean, in my personal opinion, I've seen worse, and you guys know the analogy I want to use. I think the puffy stuff with Biggie is a lot worse when you you act like this guy's your friend and you hire guys to ghostwrite songs for him, and then it comes out that you could have prevented the murder, and then it's even coming out now that maybe he had something to do with the murder, and then he pretty much uses his fame to go from executive producer to probably one of the most well-known rappers in the world. I have more of a problem with that than this situation right here, but. Yeah, I mean that's the bottom line, but that's pro wrestling though. The pro wrestling business. People bitch and complain for years that the product is stale, and we need to get a little bit more creative. And when you finally did have something that is a little bit cutting edge, a little bit creative, it's kind of stepping over the line. So you could argue. I think you could argue both ways. The thing is, though, like, I think if they had known that doing the same, I don't think Benoit spoke up here. Benoit kept a lot of things inside. He was, even according to Kurt Angle, like, Angle actually went up to him and said, I think you're being underutilized. I don't know if it was at this time, but Benoit would just be like, don't say that to me. Don't say it. I don't want you talking to me like that again. So I think Benoit was someone that would, keep things in. But this had to affect him. And you got to wonder, why was Vicky Guerrero cool with this? Why was Chavo cool with this? It's, I guess the only reason I could think of is because Vince McMahon's paychecks are feeding their families. So you don't want to step on the guy that feeds you. So I guess that would answer that question. But, yeah, the divine intervention stuff was cool. And at the same time, Orton did praise Eddie by saying that Mysterio is no Eddie Guerrero. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, this is where Randy Orton was good at, man. He's a prick. He's a cocky heel. I thought the match was really, really good. The match felt like Mysterio was fighting from behind. It felt like a WWE style Rey Mysterio match, not a Lucha Libre, spot fest. I'm not saying that Mysterio would have, not to take away from those Lucha style matches, but this just felt like Mysterio was fighting, uphill. And I thought it was cool. He was able to, kick Orton right in the face. He was able to, do a beautiful neck snap that just came off with a lot of ferocity that Mysterio didn't normally show. But Orton was a bully here, man. He was just totally dissecting Mysterio's arm against the steel steps. So Orton did some really, really good stuff here. And like I said, man, Orton took a pounding. Mysterio kicked him so hard that he was actually bleeding from the nose the hard way. And the electric chair into the sunset flip was cool. I thought this was a really, really good match. A great heel performance from Orton. Thought the ending was sweet. The Orton counters the 619 into a small package. And, sometimes these spots where you're trying to hold the ropes or get a foot on the rope, sometimes it's tough to execute. I think this is one of the most beautifully executed, heel holding onto the ropes to secure the victory that I've ever seen. So it was a great match. Some people might think I'm overrating it. I've seen some people rate it lower, but I think this is a solid 4-star match. I thought, Orton got on the mic and, he came off like such a prick. And Mysterio just sold it like, he lost his son or gambled away his life savings, like his life was about to be over. And he's basically just sulking backstage, just apologizing for letting everybody down. So I thought it was a good story. Little did we know Mysterio is going to be thrown into the WrestleMania triple threat match. Which was cool, but it definitely seemed like a lot of people just, would have, like looking back at WrestleMania 22, I just think a lot of people would have preferred, it to be one-on-one. I just think the triple threat was cool, but, the gripes are that it was a little bit too short. Mysterio's entrance, took up too much time. And when you just look at, the possibilities from a one-on-one standpoint, whether it be Angle versus Undertaker, Angle versus Orton, Angle versus Benoit, Benoit versus Booker T. You could have got so many quality one-on-one matches at that WrestleMania. It just kind of, even though I said the WrestleMania 22 match, it's short, it's sweet, it's got great replay value. It just feels like, man, you just could have gotten something better out of this core right here. So it is what it is right there. So Randy Orton is going to WrestleMania. There's even rumors that he was supposed to win at WrestleMania if he didn't, fail a drug test or get suspended, it seemed to be like a yearly situation with Randy Orton from like 2005 to 2007. And then we move on from there. For the main event, we got the World Heavyweight Championship. We got Kurt Angle defending the title against The Undertaker. As we saw, Undertaker destroyed the ring at the Royal Rumble to set up Angle versus Undertaker. To me, this was the match of the year for 2006 in the WWE. I would even put this above, Angle and Joe from TNA, whether it be the Genesis match or the Turning Point match. Both matches were great, but I think this is even better than any match that TNA had in 2006. I'm not going to say that it was better than any Ring of Honor match. Ring of Honor had, legendary 5-star matches in 2006. There might have been like 5 or 6 matches better than this main event here in Ring of Honor, but it's not to take away from this match right here. It was awesome stuff. I would definitely say that the best Kurt Angle versus Undertaker match, and just a huge step up from the stuff that they did in the early 2000s, without a doubt right here. So, very submission oriented, as we saw even at No Way Out 2003. Taker, it seemed like as UFC got more popular, he started to expand his submission work, make it a little bit more MMA influence with the Hell's Gate submission and a lot of the arm bars. So it's a very submission oriented match, and it was great stuff too. They even busted out. Kurt Angle even busting out the Bret Hart figure 4 around the ring post, which it was actually Undertaker's idea, because Undertaker had worked with Bret. So, I thought Angle was crisp here, man. I don't think 2006 Angle was the best version of him. I think he was a little bit more athletic a couple years prior, but I think execution-wise and from an intensity standpoint, this was pretty much as good as it gets here. And the stuff with the referee wasn't as bad here. I remember the first time I saw it. It was actually a live interview, pay-per-view feed, dubbed onto a DVD-R. So they didn't block out the cursing, but some of the cursing to the referee when they were about to count out the Undertaker, I was just like, man, Kurt Angle is all pilled up here. Like, this is the evil version of Kurt Angle, even though he's a babyface. But watching it back, it didn't seem like it was too bad. I don't know if it was edited or whatever. And it's funny, on the Angle slam spot, when Angle slams Taker through the table, it's tough, man. So he Angle slams him through the table breaks. But as he's trying to execute it, the table almost, crushes his trachea. And you just got to be so careful on some of these table spots. Because they could really just do a lot of damage. I remember the RVD one when he did the leg drop through the table and the table breaks and the edge of it almost hits the eye. So you just got to be careful about the edges of the table. It looked like Angle was in a lot of pain, and I'm glad he actually cleared that up. So that was definitely great stuff. So, but yeah, man, this really did over deliver, from a submission standpoint. They really didn't overdo it with any near falls. The only near fall was when Angle kicked out of a choke slam, but, just mind blowing, counters here from Kurt Angle into the ankle lock. If you love the ankle lock, this is you get a trifecta of ankle lock counters. The first one being the choke slam into the ankle lock, which is a beautiful counter because on the way down, Angle's got to totally shift his body and just totally roll up the Undertaker from that choke slam, and then he actually counters the last ride into the ankle lock, and Taker gets out of it again, and then and the final one, he counters the tombstone into the ankle lock. So it's tombstone into a tombstone, and then Taker counters it back into the tombstone. And then Angle basically just crawls on Undertaker's back and locks him into the ankle lock. And Taker just refuses to tap. But I'll tell you, man, it takes a ton of skill to pull off these transitions here, because if Angle wasn't that good on the mat, and if he wasn't as good as moving and crawling, from all those amateur days, I don't know if anyone could have pulled this off like that. And but the story of the match is this new Hell's Gate submission that Taker has been pulling off here. And it's funny when you go back to their 2002 match on SmackDown. Angle's the one that started this triangle choke. He basically countered the last ride into the triangle choke to make Undertaker tap out. I think that might have been the only time Undertaker tapped out, that 4th of July 2002. But it was Angle that applied the triangle choke in 2002. At this time, though, he's not calling it the Hell. I think he didn't start calling it the Hell's Gate until 2008 when he was making Edge bleed and everything. That was a little bit over the top. But at this point, Taker continually busted out this triangle choke submission, which didn't really get much of a reaction at first. But the more and more he did it, the fans started reacting more and more. But they tried to build it up by locking it on multiple times here, and then the ending it comes. Oh God, the ending here was beautiful. Even though the ending is not really going to appeal to the masses. And I don't think the crowd really grasped how awesome this ending was here. So yeah, Angle actually hits the ankle slam. Then he's about to hit the ankle lock again. And then before Angle's about to get the ankle lock on, Taker locks on this triangle choke. And then Angle just he does a jackknife bridge. And then the referee counts 3. So it's a cool ending. I like the ending because it's kind of a throwback to Kurt Angle's amateur days with the neck bridging and just bridging into a pin. The jackknife bridge was beautiful here. I don't know. I think it could have been a little bit better executed. You had Nick Patrick as the referee. He's not a good referee for a match like this. I think Kyoto does a really good job of getting the fans invested every time he smacks the mat. Like Nick Patrick, there's just not a lot of. I don't know. I was never a fan of the way he countered for the pinfalls, but just a little bit of a minor gripe there. I don't really think that was the problem. It was just a very un-WWE like finish. It felt like more of an MMA finish, and maybe that kind of hurt the overall crowd reaction for the actual finish. But yeah, I thought it was an awesome match. The great submission work, just really good stuff here between Angle and Taker. If you haven't seen it yet, their most underrated match was probably on SmackDown 2003, like right before the Iron Man match with Brock. That's one where Brock comes out and hits both Angle and Taker with chairs. But before the DQ there, that was probably on their way to being their smoothest work together. I don't think Undertaker in 2006 was at his best, but it was good enough here. I thought him and Angle definitely had their best match together, their most satisfying match, their most complete match. And the ending is a little bit weird. Taker just kind of goes up to Angle and he's like, "I got your number. Next time it's going to be a different outcome." And they did have a rematch, but Mark Henry actually interfered, and that was pretty much that. But yeah, when you watch the video package here and you watch the way this show unfolds, it felt like they were kind of building towards a fatal 4-way with Taker, Orton, Mysterio, and Angle. But yeah, I think 4-ways are just too much for WrestleMania. So thank God they didn't go in that direction. But yeah, this is an incredible triple main event. Everything on this show was good. I know it didn't do that well financially, but I think a lot of people did watch it back on DVD. I would imagine the DVD did much better. I actually wasn't able to order this pay-per-view, but I did buy it on DVD. I actually did get the bootleg DVD from someone that watched the pay-per-view. And yeah, it did seem like some of the Angle stuff was kind of edited. I just remember him cursing like crazy with the mouthpiece, not to count out the Undertaker. But yeah, it was an awesome match. Just really, really nice transitions here. From Angle and Undertaker, not just with the ankle lock stuff, even the Germans and some of the selling from Taker, with the knee and some of the arm work submissions were just really, really good stuff. So I could go on and on about how good it was, but yeah. Meltzer only gave it 4 stars. I could kind of see why. I mean, it was a little bit slow in the beginning, but This is a match that I think you really need to see. See, I would have loved to have seen this with the pay-per-view party guys, watching this live. This just had to be mind-blowing. Especially that tombstone when Angle crawls into the ankle lock. That's just such an amazing counter. I would have loved to have seen this live, like with a whole bunch of people. It would have been a lot of fun. I mean, so should this have been saved for WrestleMania? Vince's argument against it was that he didn't want Undertaker to lose at WrestleMania. But Kurt Angle ended up losing anyway. So I don't think Angle would have cared if he's losing to Mysterio or Undertaker. I think he probably would have rather have lost to Undertaker, like looking back on it. But yeah, I just think the company was just kind of dead. I think Pat Patterson too. Like I just remember a lot of people were just dead set that Mysterio had to complete the job and pay tribute to Eddie Guerrero. So that's probably more of the reason why it didn't happen. But yeah, Angle and Undertaker, like, it would have came off much better at that WrestleMania 22 crowd. I mean, this is a good crowd, but it didn't even feel like an NBA arena. It felt like a middle of the road, SmackDown crowd, and it didn't have like a pay-per-view feel to it. I think that's the other knock on this show. So I definitely think in front of like a Smart Mark crowd, I think Angle and Taker, could have been huge. I think, Undertaker versus Mark Henry, Booker T versus the Boogeyman, Benoit versus JBL, they really fucked up the WrestleMania 22 card with the SmackDown side of it. But, the Angle Orton Mysterio has a ton of replay value for me. Even though, that match could have been longer and it could have been better, I still think it's a sweet match. But I'll end it right there. That's No Way Out 2006, and I'm out. All right.